Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, and in today's videos we are going to learn about acids. So let's start with the definition of acids. So compounds which contain one or more hydrogen atoms and when dissolved in water produce hydronium ions is called acids. So what is hydronium ions, how it forms, we have discussed earlier. So I hope that you watch this video where I have discussed about hydronium ions about in chemical bond video. So let's move on. So HCl, when you put HCl in H2, it will produce H plus and Cl minus ion, and this H plus again combine with H2 producing hydronium ion. So now what about HCl? Why it is dissociates like H plus and Cl minus? Actually, HCl are joined by a covalent bond. And Cl, chlorine being higher electronegative atom, it attracts the bonding electron pair towards itself, thus making the HCl bond quite weak, and thus the H plus easily dissociate from Cl minus and it produce H plus and Cl minus in water. Actually, H2O water is itself a polar compound. HCl being a polar compound, it dissociates in H2O easily. So other types of examples are H2SO4 plus 2H2, then 2H3O plus SO4 2 minus. Let's have an example of CH3CO2H. This is actually the acetic acid plus H2, then CH3COO minus plus H3O plus. Now, what about H2SO4? Actually, H2SO4 when dissolved in water, it dissociates in H plus, 2H plus and SO4 2 minus ion. And these 2H plus then combine with water and produce 2H3O plus ion. This is hydronium ion. Okay, so this is, I have told you that how H2SO4 gives 2 hydronium ion and it shows its acid character. So now move on to the classification of acids. Acids can be classified in 2 categories depending on their sources and depending on their basicity. So according to their sources, acids can be divided into organic acids and inorganic acids. And organic acids are generally obtained from plants, animals, foods, and they generally contain carbon and hydrogen. For example, you can see citric acid, C6H8O7. Actually, it presents in citrus foods like your lemon or oranges there. And formic acid presents in the sting of bees and ants, and lactic acid you can find in foods like sour milk and curd. So I have told you that they are weak acids because their tendency to dissociate in water medium is very less. They do not dissociate completely in aqueous solution. That is why they are called as weak acids. Okay, so next move on to inorganic acid. Actually, inorganic acids are obtained from minerals. Some examples are hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid. Actually, they do not contain carbon. That is the main feature of inorganic acids, that they do not contain carbon. They are strong acid and highly corrosive in nature. Highly corrosive means that they can cause skin burn if it touches your skin. So definitely you must have a little bit caution while you are handling this in those acids. So that is why they are strong acid, and one thing you must remember that they dissociate completely in solution. They are not like organic acids that do not dissociate completely in aqueous solution. So there are certain kind of you can say carbonic acid is a weak inorganic acid, because when you put carbonic acid when dissolved in water, the dissolution process is like that: H2CO3, then 2H plus CO3 2 minus. This is the carbonate anion and this is 2H plus. Actually, carbonic acid, though it is found in minerals, but it is actually weak acid and it is non-corrosive in nature. That is why we use carbonic acid in producing soft drinks. Now move on to the second category, that is depending on their basicity. Actually, basicity is the number of hydronium ions that can be produced by ionization of one molecule of that acid in aqueous solution. So this is the definition of basicity. So, and in this definition, we can classify it at acids in three types. In monobasic acids, for example, your HCl, when you put HCl in water medium, it actually gives one hydronium ion. That is why it is monobasic acid according to the definition of basicity. And others are HBr, HNO3, HI, CH3, CO2H, that is your acetic acid, or you can say vinegar. So they can only give one hydronium ion. That is why they are monobasic acids. Actually, basicity of an acid depends on the number of ionizable hydrogen atoms that it has per molecule. For example, here you can see your acetic acid. So acetic acid has 4 hydrogen atoms, but actually there is only one hydrogen atom that can be ionized, because I have told you that this oxygen in this bond, in this OH bond, oxygen being higher electronegative than hydrogen atom, it pulls the electron bonding electron pairs towards itself, and thus making hydrogen vulnerable and easily dissociate in water medium, and thus producing hydronium ion. So that is why it is monobasic acid. But here CH3 is itself where there is a less electronegative difference between CH bond, and that is why this bond is very, very strong and it do not dissociate easily. So that is the reason why CH3 CH2H, in spite of having four hydrogens, only give hydronium ions. I hope you understand. Next, move on to diabasic acid. So diabasic acid is where acid gives 2 hydronium ions per molecule. Here you can see H2SO4. It has actually 2 hydrogen atoms, and thus it gives 2 hydronium ions here and here you can see. So there are other types of also possible, and that is your carbonic acid, oxalic acid, sulfurous acid. They both have 2 H plus ions, 2 hydrogen atoms, and when they dissociate, for example your carbonic acid, I just have told you that when it dissociates, it gives 2 H plus ion and 1 CO3 2 minus or carbonate anion. That is why it is a diabasic acid. Now H2SO4, the structure of H2SO4 is like that. So here it has 2 ionizable hydrogen atoms, this one and this one. That is why it gives 2 hydronium ions in water medium. Now let's move on to tribasic acid. So definitely like monobasic acid and your dibasic acid, tribasic acid give actually 3 hydronium ions respectively. For example, your H3PO4. So H3PO4, the structure of H3PO4 is like that. So here actually the phosphoric acid has 3 ionizable hydrogen atoms, and that is why it gives 3 hydronium ion and thus become tribasic acid. Another example of tribasic acid is citric acid. So thus it has only 3 ionizable hydrogen atoms, and thus it becomes a tribasic acid. So I hope you understand what is monobasic, diabasic and tribasic acid. Now how these 3 kinds of acid reacts with base. Actually here we have taken a base NaOH, and when we put HCl on it, it produces NaCl and H2. Remember, one thing that you must remember always, When there is monobasic acid react with base, it will only give one normal salt, as it is a monobasic acid, as it has only one hydrogen atoms or ionizable hydrogen atoms, and it produces only one hydronium ions in water solution or aqueous solution. And then move on to dibasic acid. So in dibasic acid, as here you can see an example of H2SO4, we are taking NaOH, and there it produces two normal salts, this one and this one. This one is sodium hydrogen sulfate and this one is sodium sulfate. And when it comes to your phosphoric acid, as it has a tribasic acids, so it will give three normal salts, NaH2PO4 or monosodium phosphate, this is disodium phosphate, and this is trisodium phosphate. So let's learn what is concentration of acids and strength of acids, their difference. The amount of water present in acid is concentration of acid. So if you have more water and less acid, it will be diluted solution of acid. But where you have less water or very less water, a negligible amount of water, and have a more amount of acid, then it will be the concentrated acid. Okay, and strength of acid is something that the concentration of hydronium ions it produces in its aqueous solution. So you can say that that when we have H2SO4, it produces 2H plus in per molecule, or 2 hydronium ions per molecule. That is why it is highly concentrated. Whether in comes HCl, it can only give 1 hydronium ions. That is why it is less. It has less strength than H2SO4. So now move on to degree of ionization. Actually, it is the ratio of number of acid molecules ionized by total number of acid molecules present in aqueous solution into 100. It refers to the amount of neutral particles that are ionized into charged particles. For example, suppose you have taken 3 molecules of H2SO4, and there in aqueous solution we see only two H2SO4 molecules get ionized and others 1 remain as same. So here the degree of ionization will be number of acid molecules that are ionized, that is 2, and in the denominator position we will put the 3 H2SO4, and now 2 by 3 into 100 will be your degree of ionization alpha. Now I have used this example just to make you understand, but this is not a real value. We will use degree of ionization in another case, we will study them later. Now learn some properties of acid. So there comes first the physical properties of acid. Actually it is without test. Actually some acid cannot be tested. For example, the hard acids, your HNO3, H2SO4, HCl, if you try to test them, it will burn your tongue. And now acid can be solid, volatile or non-volatile. Solid acids are boric acid, oxalic acid, tartaric acid, citric acid, because they have huge structure. And because of their heavier structure and strong intermolecular force of attraction, they are solids. Okay, and volatile, you can see this here, acetic acid, formic acid. Now, if you take the example of acetic acid, formic acid, you will find that their structure are quite less heavier than boric acid, oxalic acid, tartaric acid. I have already shown you the structure of citric acid. I hope you understand. They are volatile and thus they are easily vaporizes. Okay, and non-volatile is sulfuric acid. Because sulfuric acid, there is less intramolecular force of attraction in sulfuric acid molecules, and that is why they are non-volatile. They are liquids in nature. Actually, acids have corrosive nature. It can cause skin burn when it touches your skin. Actually, it is strong acids are mostly corrosive in nature. Organic acids are, as they are weak acids, and that is why they are non-corrosive in nature. Okay, now change color of litmus. Actually, litmus is a indicators, and when it comes when it comes to your acid will change blue litmus paper into red litmus paper. It conducts electricity in aqueous medium. I have told you that in aqueous medium, acids get dissociated and thus producing ions, and if there is ions, there will be electricity. Okay, then what is indicators? It aqueous distinct in acidic and basic medium. For example, your methyl orange, phenolphthalein, litmus. So what is litmus? I have told you that how acid can change blue litmus paper into red litmus paper. Acid can also change methyl orange. In acid medium, methyl orange become orange to pink, and phenolphthalein remain colorless in acid medium. Now move on to olfactory indicators. Olfactory indicators are those indicators whose smell changes in acidic or basic solution. For example, your onion, vanilla, clove oil. In these three olfactory indicators generally retain their smell in acid medium, but while they are put in basic medium, their smell cannot be detected now. Now let's move on to chemical properties of acid. Actually, acids reacts with active metals, for example, magnesium, iron. So here you can see an example like Mg. When reacts with 2HCl, it produces MgCl2. This is a salt, and also it emits hydrogen gas. When metal react with acid, it produces hydrogen gas. This is the most significant part of this reaction, that hydrogen gas emits. And similarly, it reacts with base, and one thing that is very much important, that when acid reacts with base, for example your copper oxide, when it reacts with acid, it will produce CuSO4, that is a salt, and also water. So you have to remember that when acid reacts with base, it produces salt and water. NaOH plus HNO3, it produces NaNO3 plus H2O, and here, thus, base and acid combines to produce salts and water. Reaction with carbonates. It also reacts with carbonates. For example, your calcium carbonate, when it reacts with 2HCl, it produces CaCl2 and H2O and CO2. It produces CO2 gas, while acid reacts with carbonates. Now, move on to the reaction with sulfides. Actually, CaCO3, calcium sulfide, when it reacts with HCl, it will produce one salt, and it will emit SO2 gas, sulfur dioxide gas. When it reacts with sulfides, okay, here you have to remember that in CaSO3, there the ion is SO3 2-, while in sulfides like ZnS, zinc sulfide, it will be S2- ion. So when your acid reacts with CaCO3, calcium sulfide, it will produce one salt, CaCl2 and SO2, and when it reacts with your sulfides, and thus it will produce one salt and H2S. And this gas, hydrogen sulfide gas, has smell like rotten eggs, and thus you can identify that here there is a reaction between sulfides and acid. And now acids can also react with chlorides and nitrates, and thus produce salts. Precipitation actually occurs here. Thus BaCl2, when reacts with H2SO4, it will produce two HCl and BaSO4. BaSO4 is a salt, barium sulfate. It's a white color precipitation is observed there. Now how we will prepare acid? So for example, the first thing is synthesis. Synthesis is when two or more compounds combine to make a product. Here hydrogen and chlorine gas combine to make two molecules of HCl, hydrochloric acid, and this is hydrazine. Hydrazine are said those acids that have hydrogen and non-metallic elements. Here chlorine is a non-metallic element. I have told you what is non-metallic element, what is metallic element earlier. I hope you learned this. And then dissolution of acetic oxides or acetic anhydrides in water. So now the question is, what is acetic oxides or acetic anhydrides? Now, acetic oxides are oxides that produce acetic solution on addition to water. Most oxides of nonmetals are acidic. They do not react with acids. Here you can see an example of CO2, as it is a oxide, acidic oxide, and when it combines with H2, it produces one oxyacid, that is H2CO3. Now here this acid is oxyacid because it contains oxygen. This is about your acetic oxide. What happens when there occurs oxidation of nonmetals? Here this is a sulfur. So when sulfur reacts with HNO3, it produces H2SO4 plus 2H2O plus 6NO2, nitrogen dioxide gas. It's a brown color gas, remember. So actually here this is the oxidation of nonmetals because sulfur having oxidation number 0, and when it reacts with 6HNO3, it becomes H2SO4, where the oxidation number of sulfur is plus 6. That is why there is an increase of oxidation number, and thus it is an oxidation reaction. And now it can also be prepared by displacement. For example, this is a salt NaCl, and when it treated with H2SO4, it will produce NaHSO4 and HCl. Here there is displacement occurred between NaCl and H2SO4. Now here you can see that NaCl, when dissociate, it become Na plus Cl minus, and H2SO4, it will produce 2H plus SO4 2 minus. So now this Na plus react with HSO4 2 minus. Actually when H2SO4 dissociate, it first produce 1 H plus and 1 HSO4 2 minus, and this HSO4 2 minus reacts with Na plus and produce NaHSO4 and HCl. So I hope this is the whole thing of this reaction by displacement. Okay, now one question for you, that water is never added to acid in order to dilate it. Why? The hint is, it is an exothermic reaction. Actually you should add acid dropwise and just stir it. You have to stir it continuously, and this is the safest way, because if you add water to acid, they form an extremely concentrated solution of acid, and it may start to boil. The acid may splash, and if somehow it touches your body, it will create skin burn. Thus, this is very hazardous for you to put water directly into acids. So never do this mistake in laboratory while you will do your practical classes. So this is the question, and one last question is for you, that is acetic anhydride of the following acids. So for carbonic acid, I have told you that this is CO2. CO2 is the acetic anhydride. For sulfurous acid, your acetic anhydride will be SO2, sulfur dioxide, H2, and thus produce H2, SO3 or sulfurous acid. For nitric acid, it will be your N2O5 plus H2, it will produce 2HNO3. For phosphoric acid, H3PO4, there will be P2O5 plus 3H2, and thus it will produce 2H3PO4. So I hope you understand and enjoy the session about acids. And if you have any doubts and queries, please go direct to the comment section, ask me. I will give you reply as soon as possible. And I hope that you understand all the thing. So that is it for today. I hope till then stay connected with me. Thank you for watching.